So we should be recording. Holly, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me on. Looking forward to this. It's been a while.
It has been a while. We were just reminiscing and catching up then. It's about 15 years or so since we met and you bought a pup off me.
Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable, isn't it? 15 years. A lot has happened since then. But yeah, it was, I was just saying to you, wasn't I? It was an accident that I actually found you and the dog. It was purely because the dog that I went to go and pick up, they didn't answer the front door.
Craziness.
It's so weird. And I don't know, I found you. It was a completely different dog. Completely different dog. It was like, I think it was a Patterdale. Can you believe it? Oh my God. And
from one extreme to the other.
Patterdale to a GWP. And yeah, then I turned up on your doorstep and I think didn't you have a big bulldog or something?
I had an American bulldog called Jeffro, and I was
and I was like, bloody hell, what's this? And but he was as soft as anything, wasn't he?
Oh
and
yeah, he was absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
I think he was the one looking after the pups, wasn't he? And then I walked into your kitchen and there was this litter of 12, and that was that.
Yeah, they're once you see them, I mean, when I was going to look at the pup I have now, somebody said to me, like, what are you thinking? I was like, look, I when I get there, if it don't feel right, I'm not going to get it. But of course, there's no rubbish puppies, right? So you've got to have your head screwed on. And when you've got 12 in front of you as well, you're going to fall in love with one of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember saying, I think the pup I got, Mole, as I called him in the end, the most hilarious name, but he was sort of sitting at the back, and I remember thinking, no, that's the one I want. And you were like, well, he's not the pick of the pack. And I was like, oh no, it's fine. And then later on, I think they'd all gone one by one, and you were like, and you probably said this to everyone, but you're like, actually no, he was the pick of the pack in the end. I think he was anyway. I think he was magnificent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those. Everybody's looking for different traits, right? Like I like the crazy dog. I'm like it with everything I get. If I get an eagle, like my eagle's called Piles because he's a pain in the ass. And I like craziness. I like a dog that's a little bit mad. And once I own it, I'm like, oh, what have I done? But
what have I done? Yeah. Well, you'd like the wire I've got now. Then he's an absolute lunatic. So yeah, maybe you'd want him for a day or two.
And he's called Lemmy, right?
Yeah, he's called Lemmy, and that name suits him because he's a rescue, actually, or rehoming. So he's named after Radiohead, and he's taken a lot of drugs as well. So he's got epilepsy, bless him. Oh. But yeah, so he is properly wired. But he's a beautiful, beautiful dog, lovely dog. It's just unfortunately he's got epilepsy, like severe epilepsy, which is a shame. But apart from that, in every other way, he's fine. It's just that he has to take a lot of medication.
Yeah, I mean, I see like you out running with him a lot. That's the only thing. Like, I used to love running with a wire haired because they're just so strong. We'll go for days. As soon as you stop, they'll stop and stand with you. Then they'll go again. And yeah, so I did used to miss running with a wire haired.
You say that though. So Lemmy isn't much of a runner. He does run with me, but I say he's more of a 10K dog. After a while, he can't be bothered.
Okay.
Whereas Mole, I mean, I took Mole to the Alps and stayed in a hut, and we stayed there for a month, and we ran. He was amazing. I would run for like 26 miles with him, no problems, off lead. He was just the most fantastic dog, honestly. I think I probably reached out to you a few times, but it took 8 years. 8 years, he was a complete arsehole. And then something happened. It was really weird. It was just like one day he was like, do you know what? I'm just going to do as I'm told. And then he just came, just honestly the most wonderful dog. I would run with him everywhere. I lived in Bradford and Avon, and I'd run along the canal all the way into Bath, through Bath, and I never put him on a lead. He'd just stay by my side. He was a fantastic dog. But yeah, Lemmy, and he was a big dog. He was like 34 kilos, very leggy.
Yeah, big dog. Yeah.
And Lemmy's only like 24, 25, so he's quite small. But and quite different to Mole in terms of temperament. Lemmy's very clingy, whereas Mole was very, he was happy in his own skin and would do his own thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you for put me onto GWPs.
Once you're in, you're in. Even though like now I own a spaniel, I still consider myself a wire hair man. People speak to me about dogs, I'm like, well, I'm a wire hair man, really. But yeah. For me, it was a case of as well having a smaller dog, like having a spaniel. Although my spaniel's big, like he's 20 kilos now at 7 months old. It was just the size of a wire hair everywhere. Like even if I went fishing, having a wire hair in the bivvy or having
I
a
know.
wire in the back, it's just a big dog, isn't it?
Yeah, and like we've got a camper van, so we go around away quite a lot. And like even and also Lemmy's got this, I don't know if it's a wirehead thing as well. Like he's got this, he thinks he's a small dog, so he'll sit on me. And he's a proper like lap dog. And in the van he wants to sleep on me. And I mean, I don't know how, I've got friends who've got packs of wire hairs. I don't know how they cope with it or where they sleep or how they, walk them all. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to have a place where I could have a lot of them. I've got a very small place, but yeah, smaller dog is easier. I that is definitely true.
Yeah, like a Patterdale. Patterdale would be ideal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I could have been a Patterdale person, couldn't I? But that could be awesome as well.
So you said about your running. That's obviously like I when I talk to athletes, sports people, obviously that was me for a big portion of my life. I was a professional athlete. When I talk to, I'm always mindful of the fact I don't want to make it your identity. Because I feel like, I mean, that's one of my big things in something that I'm looking at the moment is people get lost in their identity of being an athlete, but it does become your life, right? And for you, I think now, like watching you on Instagram and stuff, because of where you're at in your career, it probably is like your whole life is probably running, right?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's really good, a good question about identity. And I think that for most of my life, I mean, I didn't start running properly really until my mid to late 20s, like taking it seriously. And I was professional, although I think it really sounds weird saying professional, but I was full time for a good portion of that. In fact, actually, when I first met you in 2010, that was sort of my breakthrough year, which that was the year that I qualified for the European Championships, Athletic Championships, and then the Commonwealth Games. So that was the big sort of year for me. And it had taken a lot, taken quite a while for me to get to that point. But for me, running was my identity then. It was everything. Everything that I did, everything that I strive towards. But then, there's issues with that as well. I think that's the thing. It was all too much, all too consuming. I took it far too seriously. When I look back on it now and I think about how I train now, but now obviously it's still my life because I've worked within athletics and I still work within athletics. I was a full-time athlete for Asics or ASICS, the shoe brand, and then I went on to carry on working for them. And I just left them last year actually, and it was 10 years that I was with them. And now I'm a coach, and I was a coach whilst I was also working for Asics as well. But now I'm full-time doing that now. So I guess I can't really see any other. I don't know what else I would do if I'm honest. But it is my identity, but I don't want it to be all consuming. I am a different, I have other interests, although I can't really think of what they are, mainly coffee, and dogs. But I think also if you're a full-time athlete or professional, it has to be your identity really, because you are, all in with it, especially with what I do when I was a marathon runner, road marathon runner, and training for road marathons is really hard. It's really hard physically and mentally, and it's exhausting, and it's just a real fine balance as well of like looking after yourself. And you're never massively healthy, I would say, as a full-time athlete. That's the thing. You're on that verge, and that's the issue is I was like that for many years, and I think I was very unhealthy for quite a lot of that. And that's something now as a coach I'm very, very aware of, and I don't want that to happen to the athletes that I look after. Things are very different now, obviously, from when I was training. 2010 or early 2010, it was, there was a lot of things I definitely would not do now that I did then.
Yeah, I mean that's I think one of the things I gain most of all from coaching is hindsight. Like I look back and I turned professional 2002. So I was obviously in MMA back when it was not even called MMA, and I look at some of the things I did and the way we used to punch each other in the head constantly, and every day would spar, and we're training 6-7 hours a day. And I mean, it was all consuming for me, but also I was one of the other people I had falconry, which I absolutely is a passion within me, and it drew me away from fighting a lot. And I think if I wouldn't have had falconry, I'd have been too consumed by fighting. Maybe I'd have got further in my career, but looking back now, I don't think that would have been a good thing. I think the damage I would have taken maybe would have been. So I'm really happy with the fact that I was quite split, and it was easy for me to cut away from being a fighter. But I look back now, and the greatest thing I have as a coach is the wisdom to pass on to my students and say, listen, don't do what we did. Stop. I can see guys who are sparring too much, and I can see guys who are maybe not enjoying their life enough. And I can say,
Mhm.
take them to a side and I can say, stop. Like, at the very, very best, even if you make it all the way and you're one of the greatest in the world, you will regret not having these little moments. Stop, have a break, have some time, and I'm very upfront and honest with them about the fact that this cannot be your everything, because at some point and early in your life, this will end.
I totally agree, and that's what I say to the athletes that we coach. I mean, we coach athletes from all different levels, just to sort of a recreational to guys that are, running 2:20s for the marathon, so pretty fast.
Yeah.
And we also coach some OCR athletes as well. But I always say, like, we're here to help you, and our main aim is for you to be happy. And that's if I look back. So in my office now, I've got rows and rows of diaries, because back in the day when I was training, we didn't have GPX watches, we didn't have all this data to hand. It was called a pen and a paper and a diary, and that was it. And I still like that, actually, because I can look back on it, and I've got books of diaries back from like early 2000, and I look back on those, and I look back on them occasionally, not too much, because it's actually really depressing. It is, because I've written a few ebooks about this as well, and it's like I look back at the stuff I was doing and I see the stuff I wrote, and it's really horrifying, some of it. It's stuff like, I wrote things like the training I was doing was insane, like the same with you, with your guys, that you were just doing, there was no periodization, it was just hard.
Yeah.
It's insane. And even I look back at what I was doing, and I read it out the other day to Pete, my husband, and I was like, this is insane. What the fuck was I doing? And it was like, and then I'd write next to it, I would write things like my weight, which is worrying. I don't, that as an endurance athlete, it's like, oh God, like I'm fat, when I really wasn't. And then things like, there was lots of things like sore left leg, sore shin, and I would do nothing about it. And then I would just keep on banging out, doing races. And then the next week, it was one book I opened the other day, next week, and I was complaining about the shin. And then the next week, it was like MRI, stress fracture. And that was my life. I was plagued by stress fractures because I overtrained, I didn't eat enough, I didn't recover, I wasn't happy. Because a lot of that comes down, I think, to stress levels as well, and happiness. Like you said, I wasn't happy. I wasn't doing it for the right reasons in the end. What started off as a hobby, a joyful thing, had turned into an obsession. And I think that's the other thing. I think when you are working with athletes or people who are like good or sort of high achievers, they're the ones that can take it too far. Like, so I think you can be that addictive personality. So I took it down that route instead of taking it down alcohol, drugs, whatever. I took it down the route of, just battering myself.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same as you. It's 100% an addictive personality. That's why I've never tried golf. That's why I don't like anything that's going to be difficult. I don't try, because I'll lose myself to it. But it's like people say to me all the time, they're like, I wish I had a bit more of your mentality, because like when I do the ice bath stuff, or I did this burpee challenge for Christmas, you may have seen. So like day 1 was 1 minute, 2 was 2 minutes, 3 was 3 minutes, 4 was 4 minutes, all the way up to 24 minutes. And like people are like, why have you done this to yourself? And I'm like, because I like stuff where my brain tries to tell me to quit. I like stuff where my brain saying, come on, you could no one's watching, just do 10 minutes and then make the video. Look, just
do an ultra. You need to become an ultra runner, because that's all in your brain.
Yeah, I think I've got a body that wouldn't allow me, I think. Nice. I do like 5 to 7K, and I enjoy them. But even then, it's the mental side I enjoy. So I run with no music, because I like my brain telling me that my leg hurts, my back hurts, and then I like having to fight it. So, but it's not, it's not, that is not healthy if you don't understand. You have to manage this. I mean, I'm pretty sure I have an eating disorder based on the fact I used to have to cut weight. So now,
course.
whenever I
Yeah.
eat food, I offset it with how, whilst I'm eating it, I'm offsetting what exercise I'm going to have to do to compensate for the extra food I've eaten. Which
And
is
are you conscious about like calories and stuff then, about what you're putting? Are you making a decision on that then? Like, well, I'm not going to have that because it's more calorific, or is it purely offsetting?
So no, what I do is I generally eat very low carb anyway. But let's say I was going to go out and have a day where I was going to go out for a meal and I was going to have pasta and pizza. Let's say if I go to an Italian, I'm having pasta and pizza for sure. So I'll go and I know that it's going to be, so the day when I'm going to go, that day I'll train extra, and the next day I'll think, right, I've got to offset this, and it might even be that when I get home from the restaurant, I go out and do a 25-minute walk, very low level, but I walk, and then when I go, just because of the mental aspect that when I go to bed, I'll think, oh, I've burnt a few of those calories off there. I've done a bit,
Yeah.
which is insane. It's dumb. It's a stupid way to live your life. But I never weigh myself now. Like rarely. I judge myself aesthetically by how I look in the mirror, because that's all that's important to me, because I lived a life where I had to be a weight. That's no longer the case. Am I happy with how I look? I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, that's an offset as well from endurance running, and it's no big surprise that that's why I had stress fractures, because I was controlling what I was eating, which was a really bad thing. And again,
undernourishing. You're saying you were
oh yeah,
undernourished.
yeah, I was under fueling. I was just not eating enough, and I knew I wasn't, because all I craved was sugar as well, because that's all I wanted. I didn't eat enough protein. I mean, that's the big change now I've made in my life, and I that's a big thanks to my husband Pete, he was a powerlifter. He was British powerlifter, and I went from being watching everything I ate and under eating to hanging out with him and watching him eat. I've never seen anything like it. It's insane, because he wasn't a bodybuilder or anything. He was a powerlifter, and for him it was all about, like, he was trying to maintain this 112 kilo body, and that involved a lot of eating, and I've never seen anything like it. So for me, it was a really, although I would say it's also disordered eating as well, because watching him, the weighing stuff out, for me was a real scary thing to see. I didn't want to be going down a route of weighing stuff out or anything like that, because that's what I used to be like, or checking how many calories, or how many grams of protein, how many grams of carbohydrate. But I think both of us, since we've been together, we've actually, good things have happened in terms of, I eat loads more food. I eat a lot more protein because I had no protein. And as someone over 40, it's really important, especially a woman. And then he stopped being so rigid with his eating, because he'd stopped powerlifting by then anyway, competitively, and then became much more intuitive with his eating. I mean, he's always constantly having protein powder, protein shakes, all of that, but he will still, have a pastry with a coffee and like have a pizza, whereas before he would never have anything like that. And I think that's, again, it's that sort of controlling behavior, isn't it?
You have an omnivorous diet though, right? You're not like a vegetarian or anything?
No, God, no, we have meat, yeah. But I mean, I'm high carb. Have gone down the low carb route before. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for endurance athletes if you want to run fast, and it doesn't work for a long period of time, especially for women. You've got to be really careful hormonally. But yeah, we just eat lots of food, and good food. We don't drink. And we don't restrict ourselves if we want something, but and that's something that I obviously want to educate the athletes that we coach as well. I say in endurance athletics, protein is still a big issue. Most athletes are just not eating enough protein, and when you tell them really how much they should be eating, and they think they're eating enough, and they look at it as what it actually looks like, it's actually really hard work to get that amount of protein, and you've got to work at it. And they're so far off it. Endurance athletes are terrible for it, and especially if you're coaching vegetarian or vegan athletes, which we do have a lot of them, and that is an issue,
Yeah, so I only have one experience of what you would be called like an adventure. It was an adventure race, quite ultra. So it was one side of the Pyrenees to the other side of the Pyrenees.
Wow.
But it was 1,100 kilometers. So there were zigzags, turn points. You have to paraglide, or you have to walk or run or whatever. And you have to carry your pack the whole time. So my pack weighed 9 kilos. So in there is my paraglider, my harness, all my instruments and stuff. You have to have a support vehicle. Generally takes about 5 to 7 days. And I was generally doing 40 miles a day on foot. And
Wow.
it started day one. You start at the beach on Hondarribia, and you have 21-kilometer run, but right at the end there's an ascent of about, I think it's about 3,000 meters or something, to go up La Run, and then so you've just run 21k. And I started the race like keto. I've been keto, I trained keto, I felt good. Halfway up La Run, my whole body went into cramp, not just my legs, my back, my ribs. So by the time I got to the top, I was led down. I physically couldn't have got in my harness, because being sat in that position, I was cramping so badly I couldn't move. So I'd lost an hour and a half then. Yeah, I lost an hour and a half then, where I was just drinking literally like liters of squash with table salt in it, and trying to eat some carbohydrate, bananas and stuff, to try and get stuff into me. And then an hour and a half later, I managed to take off. But it was the worst, probably 2 days of my life recovery after that. And it just wasn't, it just, although I trained like it, it was no way I could feasibly get through anything extended periods of exercise and output on that diet.
But if you, it depends on, so you can, so I did low carb before Comrades, which was one of my first ultras that I did. So I moved on to doing ultras. Comrades is one of the biggest ultras in the world, and it's a road ultra in South Africa, and it's point to point. It's 80 kilometers. And I specifically did low carb before that to make myself a good fat burner. This was back in 2013 when low carb was quite a big thing. But what happened was, it worked for me, but I was never at a point where I went into that lactate threshold. So when I started moving from aerobic to anaerobic sort of stuff, because I was running slow enough, I was still running pretty fast for that amount, for that distance. But and what happens is, as soon as you push on, over that sort of 10-mile pace, half marathon pace, you are burning carbs so rapidly that's the only way you're going to be able to continue, by putting more in. And the whole fueling thing has taken a big turn over the last probably year to 18 months, where and the endurance world have been taking their cues from the cyclists, like Tour de France guys. And they are now, like, we're calling it food doping, but they are now taking on huge amounts of carbs per hour, as opposed to before, where it was always like, take very little so that you're getting a really good fat burning adaptation. And now athletes are taking up to 120 grams of carbs per hour, if not more, to light that fire so that you can run faster for longer.
I saw I think it might have been Lance Armstrong's documentary, one cycling documentary, and they were saying they were waking in the middle of the night to eat, and then they'd go back to sleep, just so they were carb loaded enough to start the day the next morning.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's different. If you're on a bike, you can take on a lot more food and carbs, because you haven't got that jostling thing with your stomach. Whereas running, it's much harder. You can train your guts, but it takes a while. And for me, I'm running like 100-mile races now, and it's been a really big difference from running marathons, sort of taking me 2.5 hours, to now running for, like, the longest run I've done is 31 hours. And that is, you're having full-blown meals and stuff, and you've got to get a lot of calories in to sustain yourself for that amount of time. And if you're at altitude, you're burning even more carbohydrate at altitude. You've got to take that into account. And so it's been fun moving up from marathons. I never thought I would do an ultra. I thought it's for crazy people, and it is for crazy people.
Yeah, it is. For sure.
I just realised that I'm crazy. I admit it. So Comrades was my first sort of ultra, and I thought that was long enough, and that took me 7 hours. And then I moved up to doing hundreds, and then the hundreds were just like, hundreds are really, like, I don't know, they are slightly, when you're doing them, you think, I'm never doing this again, this is just insane. And especially if they're really long, like the 31-hour one was the Mont Blanc race, UTMB, so it was around UTMB, so you go through 3 countries, and you run into the second night. And if you're running to the second night, it's really, like, fucks with your brain, because you start hallucinating, and it is the sleep deprivation. It's just, it can see why it's a torture thing. It kills you, and it's how you deal with that, and the altitude, like I said. So for me, you're doing it and you're thinking, why am I doing this? This is insane. But then within a few days, you've signed up for something else. And
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can imagine that once it's over, the want for something that nothing, because nothing else replicates it, right? I mean, but it's interesting you say about the sleep deprivation. So I've had John Kelly on here.
Oh, have you? Amazing.
Yeah. He just said when he just did the last Berkeley, he was saying he thinks he did so well because he slept. Like he had a little sleep for 20 minutes, and lots of people weren't sleeping, and he thinks that's what really helped him. And so that makes sense when you say like that little, I mean, even if it hasn't had any positive effect on your body, the mentally saying to yourself, right, I've had a rest, I've had a little sleep, I feel better. I'm sure that can make a huge difference for someone like yourselves when you're in that position.
Yeah, I think the sleeping thing. So my next big race that I'm preparing for is the Speed Project, which probably most people listening to this podcast have no idea what that is. So the Speed Project is a race in America, and it's an unsanctioned race, so it's not official. There's no rules. It's mad. It's unsanctioned. There's no rules, no supporters. Like there is no like aid stations. There's no one looking after you. It's just you and your crew. It starts in LA, Santa Monica Pier, and it's the first person to get to Las Vegas, to the sign in Las Vegas. So you pick your route, you just get there as fast as you can. It's been well known because it's a relay race, and that's the main event. And a couple of years ago, it's they opened up to solo runners, so people do it on their own. The solo race is invite only, so I got invited by the organizer. It's a bit like, I guess, the Barkley, you know, like no one really knows how to enter, but you know, you get asked to do it. A Barkley is a race that I would never want to do.
See, that's one that I fancy.
Oh no. I mean, I'm saying that though, but then LA to Las Vegas is approximately 500 kilometers, depending on which route you take.
I've driven that. I lived in LA for 4 months. I lived in Vegas for 3 months. I lived in San Diego for 3 months. I've driven that route probably 65 times, different ways, up over the mountains or down the highways. So I know the terrain you're going to be running. I
should have got you to come out as my crew. You'd be perfect.
Oh, I don't know about that. But it'll be, I mean, I know where you're going to be running. I know exactly. I know what sort of, I mean, the monotony of what you're going to see for a while. I think that would be my biggest advice to you. I mean, listen, don't take any advice from me. I'm an idiot. You're very welcome. My advice would be get used to seeing nothing for a long time, but dirt and sand and because even when you drive some of the roads there, you look and you're like, the monotony of it.
Yeah.
You're not even tired, but you feel yourself like drifting, you know? So that would be the hardest bit for me going into it, would be thinking, right, monotonous, dull terrain for a long time.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. So for me, I planned the route and I've looked at the routes that other people have done. And obviously the other thing is like, it takes like miles and miles to even get out of LA.
Yeah.
It's huge. So I've got to get out of LA, and then the bit that I've got to be really careful about, because a lot of people do the off-road section, which is really long, which is the power lines. Like you said, and it looks lovely sort of, but it's apparently absolutely hideous to run on, and most people just walk it, even though it's the slightly shortest route. So that's the bit sort of from Baker across to Prim before you get to so you go off the road. But I've decided, because my support vehicle, you need basically a off-roader 4x4 for support, and even those apparently have got stuck. So I've decided I'm going to run more of the road section, because there's a trail to the left of the road, and then I'm going to cut in halfway onto that power lines, because the power line section is like almost 70 kilometers, and 70 kilometers of that desert bit without any support is going to be insane. So
but you've got to factor in wind and stuff as well. Like you don't know, that's
really windy. Yeah. So so that's the thing I'm training for now. And you know, it's so many people ask me, like, how do you train for a race that far? I've got no idea. I'm making it up as I go along. But no, I mean, it's a crazy thing, and I can't really get my head around it. But you know, I know I've got years and years and years of endurance behind me, which you don't lose. It's just it's the mental side of it as well, fueling, keeping my body together, admin, that sort of stuff. So that's what I'm training for next, and that's the and that's the motivation, and it's coming up pretty quickly. But
when is that? Sorry.
Well, this is the thing, you can't, no one's allowed to say. This is the thing,
Oh,
it's a proper underground race. It's spring, I'll say that.
okay. Yeah. I mean, we've got perfect training conditions for it right now in the UK, right?
Who's saying that though? Last year they had snow in Death Valley during the race.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the thing is with it is I'm going to have extremes, so it's going to be absolutely roasting probably in the day and then very cold at night.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting, and I've got crew with me, and I've got 2 guys who are going to be doing content. So we're going to make a film. So that will be interesting, and I want everything shown. I want I want them to show that, because I think so many of these like glossy YouTube documentaries or Instagram show this like polished version of doing these races, and it's really not like that. I want to show that it's actually going to be like disgusting. I'm going to be, how I am now, I'm going to look very different at the end. I think it's going to be like saying, I hope that when I come to Las Vegas, it's going to be a little bit like The Hangover. Like I'll have no teeth, I'll probably be pregnant. Pete will be dressed as a cowboy, and the content crew will be getting married in the chapel. I want, we've got a giraffe in the back of the van. I think all of that would make such a good film, and that's what I'm hoping
amazing
for.
Yeah. Would be amazing. And also I think it would probably be, with that approach as well, I don't think it'll affect your running as much. I think when you're trying to produce something whilst you're running that's quite polished and you have to be somebody else. Like at some point when the camera's on you and you can be like, fuck off, I'm not talking right now, fuck off, and that gets put in the edit.
Like, I want vomit, I want shitting in the woods, I want everything. Not there's going to be any woods, but I want everything. And the fact that I want them to show. So this year in the solo event, there's more women now than men doing it, which is amazing. So it's about highlighting that more women are going to be doing this event. And I want them to show that I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'm not a young athlete, that I'm still competing and trying to, I still compete. I compete to win now. I may not be running as fast as I was. I'm never going to get PBs again. I'm just not. But I can do other things, and I can still be competitive at the age of, I'm 48 this year. And I still want to keep pushing it as long as I can. I mean, I don't know about you, but as I've got older as well, if I stop for any long period of time, not that I ever do, like literally if I take a week off, it's like an old car that the oil has ran out the bottom. And I've got to keep moving. I can't take 2 weeks off after a marathon like I used to. If I do, I will be injured.
Yeah, 100. I mean, I just broke my rib about 11 weeks ago, and I broke my rib warming up in a session. Like I wasn't doing anything like energetic. I was warming up, broke my rib, and then next day I was on a stationary bike in the gym, and people were like, "Oh, you're training with a broken rib." I'm like, "Yeah, I have to keep moving because." And all the way through every single day, I still trained, because as soon as I do that and shut down, my body will start to go and I'll rust. Like I feel like I'm rusting. Yeah, exactly. And also it's not good for mentally. It's not good. I mean, I'm very strong mentally. I've got no mental health issues. I'm not going to pretend I do, but I love to train. I love to push my body. So when I can't, I feel like the mental side also affects my physical, because I end up saying, by the end of those 2 weeks, I'll be like, I can't be bothered. Oh, I can't. And I don't ever want to be the guy who can't be bothered to go train. So I have to get up and I have to do stuff. So yeah, I do feel that. But so now you're entering this point, which is like the more ultra. I mean, you're probably being a little bit self-deprecating. I think you probably will set PBs because you'll do stuff that you never did previously, right? You'll push yourself in ways so they'll become different PBs. I think you goal set very differently, which is what I'm sure what you would tell an athlete if you were coaching them. You would just goal set differently. So you will, and you'll find. I think you'll probably find just as much happiness, gratitude in the things you do as you did when you were in your mid-20s, because of all the extra elements that have gone into it. But what I'm interested in is how you came, because you came into running quite late, how you came into running. Were you a hobbyist? who broke through the barrier, or did you set out with a mindset of I want to run?
No, I mean, I went to university in London, which was shit. I'd never go to university in London, but I did. And so obviously London Marathon was there, which was one of the biggest marathons. And I went to watch it because one of my mates at uni was doing it. And I was 18 at the time, 19. And I was watching it with, like a burger in my hand, a pint in the other. I didn't do any training at all. My background was riding like horses, but like coming from the farm and, and I did stuff like that. But I didn't do any sport like that. I played rugby at school. I like rugby, but I never really liked anything else. So I'd never ran, never done a race really. I was the kid that did the cross country, but would like hide around the corner and wait for them to come round and then join back. And so I watched on the marathon and it was really weird. I don't know what happened. I think I was probably a bit drunk, but I was like, oh, I can do this next year, because I saw all these people that were like, I presumed you had to be like fit and look a certain way, but like London Marathon, there was people dressed in rhino outfits. There was people who looked like my mum, my grandma. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this next year. And actually, I did do it. I did it for charity, and I got the sort of bug from that. I didn't run. I ran it all the way. I remember I didn't want to walk. It pissed it down with rain the whole time. I chafed really badly. I like bled in areas I've never bled before. But I finished it, and I don't know what it was. It almost like clicked something in my brain that it made me feel really good. It's sort of in a good way, but also I have to say sometimes, I think you talked about it earlier, in a bit of a worrying way, because I took it to such an extreme that sometimes I used to think, I wish I wasn't like that, but I wasn't. I got so obsessed with it, I wish sometimes I was okay to not be like that. But anyway, and it was from there that from that moment, I went completely crazy for about a year, and I broke my foot because I overtrained. So I took it to the extreme. You can see where this is going. And that, because that was my personality. But I never had any aspirations to be amazing. But I went from running, it was around just under 4 hours. And then a year later, I ran 3 hours 15. So I took quite a lot off it just from running more. I didn't know what I was doing. I just ran on the treadmill a bit. I joined a gym. And then that's when I just had a catalogue of injuries, because I'd suddenly gone from running from nothing to running a lot, and then also losing a lot of weight, because I think I'd lost maybe 1.5 stone or something, which was quite a lot for me then. And then I just sort of I kept it up for a bit, but it wasn't until I moved back. I stayed in London for a bit. It was a very unhealthy lifestyle. I got into all the bad things. And then and I didn't do a sports degree. I did a geography degree, so it was nothing to do with that. But I'd stayed working at a gym, and then eventually I moved back home, and I'd got into management of like health clubs, and I worked for a health club in Bath, and I ended up just doing the marathon again, and I ran just outside 3 hours, and someone had said, you should probably get yourself a coach. I didn't know anything about it, so I went up to Bath Uni, and that's when it all started. I got a coach then, and then I started training properly, and within 6 months of being coached, I'd suddenly got my time down considerably. And I got selected for GB to do a friendly race, which was amazing. And they'd seen something in me, and to be honest, I had no aspirations. I never thought I'd be that good. And then, sort of 6 years later, I was being selected for Great Britain to run at the Commonwealth Games and to run in European Championships. And, that was never, ever in my sort of wheelhouse. It was never going to be something I was going to do. And then obviously when it happened, it was amazing. And then from there that's when I went on to doing like the trail stuff and the mountains, and I went to the World Mountain Champs as well. So yeah, I mean, I feel incredibly lucky that I got to experience those championships and be selected and be that good. You see it a lot more now. You see a lot more people coming from sort of when I was selected, most of the people I was running with, they'd been junior internationals and they'd been running since juniors, and I'd never done that. I went through university, I went through the bit after, where I was out all weekends taking every drug you could take at the weekend, and I mean, I do think that helps my endurance. I'll be honest. I do think about those nights where I was out all weekend and didn't come home, and I was in a nightclub dancing on the spot for probably like 10 hours. And I sometimes think that's probably why I'm a good ultra runner, all those, I don't know, all those drugs I was sticking up my nose and stuff and waiting in car parks.
Also, I mean, look, I do believe having that past helps you massively because you don't crave that because you've not had it. I think lots of these young athletes, like I've got guys who train with me now who are like 19, 20 and it's so hard to keep them on the track because they've been training since they were 8, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing. I think that, I mean, obviously MMA wasn't around when I was really young, so I didn't start till I was 19 or 20. By then I'd taken lots of drugs and I'd partied and, I slept with girls and I'd ate crap food and whatever. Lots of these guys are coming to you, they're like 15, 16, 17, possibly a virgin, possibly not gone out and got pissed up, not gone out. And I'm like, your identity is this one thing because you've not experienced all these other things. And I mean, I'm not encouraging people to go out and take drugs and sleep with random people, but I do think it does. Yeah. And I think it does. I think it does add things that, okay, you might be slightly off the times of these other people around you at that age for now, but I think it's going to add something that's going to help you pull those times back later on, or help you when you're on your back being ground out in a horrible position. I really think that emotional trauma, like say a breakup with a girlfriend and stuff, can really benefit you when you're in a really bad spot in a fight,
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I'm glad I did have that sort of past in a way, and I didn't, because I think honestly I would have destroyed myself if I'd have been running as a junior.
Yeah,
because I did that enough in my 20s. But I would definitely, like I said, in looking at my diaries, I would definitely have still done things differently. But like you said, I'm able to use that knowledge as an athlete and pass that on to the people I coach. And hopefully I can see those patterns happening again.
And you've got cool stories to tell.
Yeah, I've got, I guess I have, and also that's, I guess, why I'm still doing all this stuff, because I think that I'm not doing it to be inspiring or anything. I'm doing it because it's part of who I am. It's my nature. I want to keep on doing some sort of crazy shit stuff, and I still want to be competitive. When I go to races, I still want to win, and I still want to, I'm not thinking about my age. I don't want to think about that. And I want to beat the men as well, not just the women.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. And I do. That's good.
I mean, it's one of those things that you say you're not trying to be inspiring, but I mean, you obviously are very inspiring. And that's how, when I'm not a runner, like I love running, but it hurts my body. I'm 85 kilos. I'm 5'10" on Tinder. I'm 5'10", like I'm like 85 kilos. I've got really big calves. I'm quite stocky. I was born to wrestle people, right? But I like running. I like that it's painful, and I like to have to fight my way through it. And I would like to do like a big 50K or someday. Do you know what I mean? But it's inspiring when I see your story. Your age, not the fact of the age, but the fact that you're saying it's a number. I'm still doing this because my body's allowing me. And when my body says I can't do this, I find a way around that and I make it something else.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It always plays in the back of my mind. Like sometimes if last week, I got a bit of a slight niggle in sort of my knee area, and I was like, oh, here we go. This is it. They go, how many people say to me like, oh, what about your knees? Like, what about them? They're fine. People think, like as you get older, your knees are going to go down, and that's always in my mind. But that's why the other thing as well, like since being with Pete, and is strength training. I didn't do strength training. And I was shit. And this was strength training that I did do was utter bullshit. It was just high volume. I was knackered. It's like so many endurance athletes. And that's what we do now as coaches. We concurrently coach together. None of our athletes, all our athletes have to do strength training as part of their coaching. It's non-negotiable. But the strength training that we prescribe for athletes is heavy, low repetition. They will not come away with DOMs, and they will be able to do their training session the next day. And that was the issue. So many athletes we get like, oh, I don't do strength training because it really hurts and I can't train the next day. Like, because you're doing it completely wrong. But you do need to do it. And this is the game changer for me. Like 2018, I was like, I've got to change something up. I'd had another stress fracture. I looked like shit. That's the other thing. As you're an older athlete, if you've got no muscle on you, no definite definition as well, it's just not a good look. and I started lifting. And again, for me, that was a way of me getting PBs. Like, I'd never done a pull-up. I couldn't do a pull-up. God, no. You know, and then I was hitting like 6, 7, 8, 10 pull-ups, full body weight pull-ups. And I was like, this is cool. This is so cool.
I mean, it's the biggest factor of it is the strength of your joints and ligaments. That's the bit when your body's moving heavy weight slowly and not in big volume. The tightness that you're getting in those joints and your ligaments and everything's like, okay, we need to be able to move. Like, it's like when people try and rehab a knee injury, let's say, and they don't put any stability work in. Like, the stability is the bit you need. Like, forget the strength for now. Like, let's get the stability back. Well, that strength that you're putting in your joints is the stability for later on. So yeah, I mean, a few of my clients run, but mainly I've got family members and friends who run, who come to me for advice because they think that an athlete's an athlete, right? And one of the biggest things I say to them straight away is, you need strength training. Like, what's your strength training protocol? And they start talking to me. Oh, well, the thing is, I run 5 days a week and I do something. No, stop. What's your strength protocol? Because that is the first element that I'm going to add. I know nothing about running. I can help you with your running based on, I could look on the internet and I could translate some stuff that you can't, but my advice would be get a running coach. However, my first thing is put some strength training into your program, and these are the things that I would add.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's why the clients that we get normally have come, because they've been plagued by injury, or they've not had any strength component, or the strength component they have had has put them off it for life. And that's what I was like a little bit. And it's just about re-educating and telling people they don't have to spend hours in a gym. You don't have to spend hours in a gym. In fact, you can actually do it relatively short bursts in your week. And it will have huge benefits. And for me, it was just like a game changer within sort of like 8 weeks. Even within 8, the thing is with endurance athletes as well, they want to see it there and then. They want to see the results. You've got to give it a bit of time, and then once it starts happening and you're all in. Like my mum's 80 this year, and she had years and years of just horrendous back pain. She was on so many medications. She was on antidepressants. She could barely drive because it hurt so much. She couldn't lift up a watering can because the garden is her main focus. Couldn't lift up a watering can, and she'd had 2 frozen shoulders. I kept saying to her, like, you've got to get in the gym, Mum. And I know it's terrifying. Come and see Pete, because Pete's a strength coach. So she started training with him 2 years ago. She started off she could just about pick up the barbell. Now she deadlifts 70 kg.
Yeah, amazing.
And within a couple of months, she'd come off all medication. She'd come off the pain meds, and she could pick up 2 watering cans. She goes into the gym now and trains. We train out of it's a bodybuilding gym, and she knows all the guys in there, and she gets herself a monster when she goes in. It's hilarious. And a protein bar when she leaves. She trains once a week. That's all she needs to do. She doesn't need to do loads. Once a week, heavy lifting. She absolutely loves it, and she feels totally energized when she leaves. And it's been a game for her.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, so many people are taking medication because they're trying to cure the symptoms of something and not addressing the cause of something. And the cause is you've let your body wither. Let's rebuild it up, like the strength and stuff, and you'll get rid of all of those symptoms because you've targeted the cause. One thing I'd like to ask you is because I do have a lot of running friends. At what point do you think a coach becomes beneficial? So from your hobbyist to your person who has aspirations, if you're someone who really likes running, but you're thinking, I don't want to do ultras, do you think it's probably beneficial? Get a coach, get all these little bits, because then that might push you forward into that. Or is it just there's an element where you think, save that for the guys who are looking to really achieve stuff?
A coach, anyone can have a coach. You don't have to be any standard. I mean, I coach coaches. I have a coach for mentor. And I think definitely coaches are really good if you're struggling with consistency. You need to have someone to be accountable to. That's the difference. It's about being accountable, because if you're a person that's really you can get loads of plans online. You can get plans that are free, you can pay for plans, and you can follow them. But if you're the sort of person that's does it for a couple of days and then goes off piste and doesn't do it, or makes it, adds more on or doesn't do as much, then potentially you're the sort of person that should get a coach. And you could be someone that's just started running, or you could be someone that's been running for years. It doesn't matter what standard you are. I think if you're also maybe always getting injured, there may be a reason for that, because you may not be periodizing your training properly. It may be because you're not doing your strength training. It may not be on that. You need guidance. And I think the main reason for getting a coach is accountability. You could be like, I don't know if you have a coach or a mentor or someone. It's about having that, what to do, but it's about having that person to bounce off and say, what do you think I should do here? Or could you give me these sessions or whatever? And for me, I could definitely go off and do my own thing, but I like to have that guidance. And I've been with Alan for, 10 years. I don't get my plan written out every day. It's not like that. We just touch base every week. It's also about, I think it's also about, if you're a person that goes a bit overboard, having a coach to rein you back is really important as well. A good coach, obviously, as long as they're not giving you crazy stuff. So yeah, I would definitely say if you need someone, I think it's more of an accountability thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, being quite naive and sitting outside of wrestling, one of my biggest advices to the people who run around me, like my uncle is just sort of transitioning towards ultras now. He ran for a long time, and he's just transitioning towards ultras now. And I said to him, I was like, have you got like a coach and stuff? And then he'll listen to this for sure. And but I think when I heard that, I was like, I think it's such a big step. Even with a massive running career, it's such a big step. If you've never had a coach before, now might be the time to get it, because I think you may overcompensate. You could undercompensate. It could be the fact of you're depleting yourself because you're worried about eating or not eating properly. All these many factors. I just think you take so much stress off yourself by just investing a few quid in somebody who can so like, counselors, let's say, counselors have to have a supervisor. So every time you counsel, you have to have a weekly or bi-weekly catch up with another counselor, and you go and you talk, and at any point you can message them and you can say, I need a chat. And you go and you talk, you say, I've got this problem, I talk about this. And I think that from an athlete point of view, as soon as you go pro, or if you're not in a pro setting, if you're not in a team, it can get overlooked how important that coach, mentor, advisory role really is for your development.
Yeah, and also I would say shop around, because different coaches offer different things. Like we obviously coach as a team, and so that's quite different. And some people don't want that; they just want a running coach or whatever. Some people like to just have their plan given to them and then they go off and do it. Some people like to have much more interaction and can actually talk to people. Either you can have an in-person coach, or so you need to shop around and talk to the person first. Like we always have long calls with people and discuss about their history and what they want and how we work, and we never just say, oh yeah, we'll take you on. We have to go away and we think about it and they think about it. So I think that you have to find the right person. And I mean, there's the other thing is there's loads of apps now as well. So this is the thing that a lot of people are using, and I think they're using it in a lot of sports. I think you can get like High Rocks apps and stuff like that, and they're fine. But again, I think it all comes down to what your nature is. I worry that if you're someone who is, the sort of person that's going to overdo it, you could massively overdo it. And then you could have the apps now, like we just took on a new client actually who'd been using a well-known running app that is now AI based, which I love AI, but in this instance, it was quite terrifying. She was telling me about the sessions they'd given her to do and the runs to do, and it was just weird, totally sporadic. And this is what people are paying for. So I think you've got to really, think about exactly what you want in terms of a coach, exactly what you want in terms of a plan, and think about your nature. I think if you're a person that likes to overdo it and go a bit crazy, you probably do need a coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good you said that. I mean, I think that anyone who's running to the point they're running quite big distances would probably benefit, especially if they want to progress. Like I say, for me, being a coach, the things that people come to me with, the problems that people come to me with, outside of even MMA, jiu-jitsu, etc., personal issues, they'll come and I'll just get a quick text message at 10:30 at night, and I just know something's wrong with this person. Do you know what I mean? And I'll be like, oh yeah, are you free tomorrow? Let's get a strength session in. And for me, it's more of, I know this person needs a bit of counselling, or they start talking to me about a fight that they've got coming up, or they're in the gym and I'm like, mate, you're not sparring tonight. And they're, oh no, I'm like, no, we're gonna work on this, we're gonna do, and it's just being that person who can just say stop. And also it's being that person who says, listen, where the fuck were you Tuesday?
Yeah, you need to do it.
It's up to me to tell you to get off the mat. Like, you should have been here. These are the session times. You be at the sessions. If I decide we're going to sit out and you're not going to do anything, that's fine. But you turn up to the sessions, you know? And just that, I think both ways, yeah, I agree with you.
And that's why getting off plans offline are great, but they don't work all the time. And and with apps as well. Whereas if you've got a person, for me, communication is key. Like, I love a voice note. You get a voice note, like you said. A voice note, I can tell, like, they've done a session. They're like, yay, hi, I've done a session. You're like, okay, they've done really well. Or it'd be like, hi. And you're like, oh, okay, right, we need to have a chat, you know? And just tone of voice, all of that sort of stuff. Whereas you won't get that from a plan or something you've written yourself. So I think it all depends. I mean, my first marathon, I did it off plan. Runners World used to do a plan, and I followed that and I did it. But then getting a coach, you know, it did turn everything around. However, I would say that I got very overcooked with a coach, you know? So it, you know, you've got to be responsible. It's different with juniors. For juniors, there's a very different responsibility there. But with seniors, you have to also be responsible yourself. But yeah, I mean, there's so much talk at the moment. I just did a podcast the other day about coaching as well. There's so much, and there's so many coaches out there, I'm sure, for the same for your sport as well. There's so many coaches out there, and there's so many coaches out there who set themselves up as like Instagram coaches that just don't, you know, they run themselves. But, you know, I think there's nothing, you can't replace that with years of your own training, being coached by other people, and just being in the sport for a long period of time, you know?
And also, you know, like, I see some people who I know really well, and now they're bragging about they got thousands of followers this, thousands of followers of that. And I'm like, yeah, but every single session you're doing, you're putting online. You're doing, and I'm like, when does the session stop being about the individual and being more about what the content's going to be? Because all of my focus with my clients is my client. That is it. All of my focus with my fighters is my fighters. I'm not thinking, oh, this would make a really good Instagram thing. Oh, hang on, no, let's stop because I haven't set the camera up yet to record. I'm talking to my client. My client's not, I'm not discouraging my fighter from messaging me at 10:30 p.m. because that's not going to look good on Instagram. And I don't want to, my fighters ring me at 10:30 if they've got a problem. It's that simple. I answer my phone and I'm there for them, because like I say to my guys, like, look, I know what I'm like as a coach. I know how good I am as a coach, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be good for you. Personalities are different. Lifestyles are different. And I say to everybody, I encourage all my guys to go and train where they want. If we ain't got a session on, go train where you want. And if it's a better fit for you and you feel more comfortable, please stay there, because when you're being punched in the face, I'm not going to be in there with you. So if it's not working for us, if our relationship isn't right, that's not a bad thing. Like, some people are just, I know people who I could not have my dad coach me, but 100%. Even if my dad was the greatest coach in the world, I couldn't. Mine and my dad's personalities clash massively. We have a great relationship. I love him to death. I caddy him when we go and play golf. When he goes and plays golf, I don't play. But he could not I could not have him coaching me or being around me whilst I'm being coached. And that's fine. It doesn't detract from somebody's coaching ability. The relationship's not right. Go somewhere else and find and seek out what it is that you want from the relationship.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's what I mean. You have to sort of shop around and find the person that fits for you. I mean, we've been really lucky. We've got people we've been coaching for like 5-6 years, and that's amazing. And you know, we've had a couple of people that you know, have maybe moved on, but I think you get an idea, don't you? And that's why we sort of interview people before we start coaching them, just so we know if our values align, you know.
Yeah, you're not just looking for the money. You're not trying to add somebody else to the program because it's money coming in, right?
Yeah, no, definitely not. I think we'd be charging a lot more, I think, if we were doing that.
Yeah. So back to your ultra that's coming up and the future ultras. What does your training look like now? What does a week look like getting prepared for this? How many miles are you thinking you'd have to cover a day while you're out there?
Yeah, so at the moment, I've been training for the last few months for this, and it does look slightly different to my normal training because I normally train sort of for marathons most of the year round. So this is a bit more, it's a bit more volume based, but you can never do. You don't need to be doing. People think that, oh, well, if you're running more than 100 miles, you need to run more miles. You actually don't, because it will actually end up being detrimental. It is about, getting more volume, but only up to a certain amount. So at the moment, I'm taking a full rest day, which I never used to take. I would take a rest day as and when. So I take Monday as a rest day, which is actually really nice. Tuesdays are easy doubles, so twice a day, and lifting. And then Wednesday is a big, like a harder speed workout, and that's around sort of my 10-mile half marathon pace, mixed paces, sort of threshold. And then what's that, Wednesday? Thursday again is a easy double. So this is, in terms of mileage, probably anything between it's about 20k,
Okay.
and then 12 miles ish. And then Friday is probably another double or a single, but with hill strides. So I do a lot of strides. And then Saturday so normally I would be doing 2 big sessions a week, and now I'm just doing 1 big session. But then on the Saturday, I'm doing something like I've been doing for the last few weeks, around like an hour easy, and then an hour steady. So around like top end of zone 2. So in terms of running times, it's a little bit slower than marathon pace.
Yeah.
So like not hard, but I'm not sort of pissing around.
Yeah.
And then on the Sunday, I'm running basically as far as I want to or can. And then as I get more closer to the event, I get a little bit more specific. So I'll probably be doing maybe some 3 days of big miles. So in terms of mileage, I'm running anything probably between, the lowest has been about 72 miles and the highest has been about 90. So I'm around that sort of distance. And then to give you an idea, that when I was training for marathons, I peaked at 115 a week.
Wow.
Mile. I know, it's insane. But I average probably more around 100 a week. I could get
4
up to
marathons
that.
a week, though. 4 marathons a week. That's
Yeah.
a lot. And that would be done
But remember,
how many days?
I was running faster. So in terms of time, it was probably very similar.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you go on time or distance, it's different. And then so I'll do 2 lifting sessions a week. I'd like to do more, but I just can't, and they're short sessions, and they are warm-up sets and then 2 heavy sets of 6 to 8 reps. That's it. Body part of pushing, pulling, and then lower body, a lot of single leg work. I can't do any more than that because it's too fatiguing.
Yeah.
And I do like quite good quality core sessions in that. So core 2 to 3 times a week. So a lot of like hanging med ball, knee raises and stuff like that. A lot of plank work, Copenhagen planks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then that's it. And I just eat shitloads of food. It's great.
What do you eat? And you eat what you like?
I eat exactly what I like. I'll give you an idea. So I got up this morning, I had a bagel with peanut butter and jam, tea. Then I went for a run. I called in the bakery on the way back and got a massive bun and a coffee. Come back, have a protein shake. And then I've had calls now, and now I'll go and have lunch, and that'll be something like a tin of mackerel on toast with salad and stuff like that, or eggs or something like that. And then this afternoon I'll have another either protein shake or some cereal with protein. And then this evening I'll have something like I don't know, like bolognese or something, or something, or fish and potatoes and vegetables. And then I have pudding as well.
Yeah. So
I've got no idea what that looks like calorie wise. I just don't care.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, even when I'm look, I like to have abs. That's how I gauge myself. I like to have abs, but I know what food looks like in a day. I don't ever count my calories. I know, like, I could look at what I eat in a day and I could say between 2.2 and 2.6. I could say by looking at it, and then the next day it could be completely different. But I just eat I eat what I want to eat. I try and eat mainly clean. I keep my refined sugars very low for the inflammatory properties because I've
Yeah.
got really bad neck problems and 3 bulging discs in the lower back. So I try and keep my inflammation foods that inhibit inflammation, I keep high. So yeah, I keep refined sugars down, and then I know sort of like, well, that looks like this. I don't count it. It looks like this. Like, you know, if I had spaghetti bolognese, I know what sort of size pasta I will
Yeah.
have. If I put more on, sometimes I see myself, I take it back off. That's just too much. I'm just eating it for the sake of having a full belly, you know?
Yeah. I would say I probably eat more than most women endurance athletes anyway. I definitely do. But I really do keep an eye on my protein, and I'm still not at enough, you know. I'm still making sure I should be getting like 100 grams a day. So I really try and focus on that. And that's been the biggest difference in terms of body composition, I'd say. Really has made a difference. And because I do eat refined carbohydrates, you know, I have bagels, I have like but I won't have that every day, but I'll be having, bread for breakfast, bread for lunch. In the evening, I have things like potatoes. I have a lot of rice. I eat a lot of rice, actually. Potatoes, rice. I don't eat pasta that much, actually, and couscous. But, you know, after dinner, I'll have some chocolate. I'm still finishing off the Christmas cake, you know.
Yeah,
You know,
I ate a box of Lindt yesterday.
Yeah. And it's just like, I am not going to deprive myself anymore as well, you know. But I like you, I have no idea how much I weigh.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. I weighed myself actually just before Christmas because I had noticed I'd been eating the same way just because I'd put my volume up a bit. I weighed myself and I'd lost almost 2 kilos, and that's quite a lot for someone of my size.
Huge percentage, yeah, it's a massive percentage.
Yeah.
What do you walk around at? What when you weighed yourself? What were you weighing?
I was 54 kilos.
At what height?
5'10". 5'10". I'm sort of thinking of you. 5'6".
5'6". So yeah, I mean that 2 kilo is a huge percentage, which will have been lost through. I mean, I should imagine your excess fat is very minimal. So
yeah,
that's a massive percentage for you to lose for sure.
I know. So it gave me an excuse to eat more chocolate, but yeah, but that is something actually I do need to keep an eye on. I don't want to lose any more weight. Definitely not anymore. But for me, I gauge it purely on my clothes, how they fit and how they feel. But for me, when I started lifting, before I started lifting, like so early 40s, I felt, and I think I was like one of those, which I think a lot of endurance athletes look like, endurance athletes, but that sort of skinny fat look.
Yeah.
Which is gross. And so I wanted to, you know, I went from being like an athlete who always wanted to be, because it is about being light. It was always about being light. And I always had that, I was light, but I just looked not good. You know, I'd still have felt like I had that little bit of roll of fat, you know, around the middle, which I didn't like. And then from doing the lifting, eating more protein, actually eating more, lifting, my body composition changed. And I would probably weigh the same, if not a bit more, but I looked so much better. I got a waist.
Yeah. And also you're going to be absorbing a lot more of your calories usefully, because when you lift, your body's going to utilize that excess that you didn't previously have, because you need to, you know, you need to restore glycogen, you need to build your muscles, you need to put protein into the muscles.
But it was my shape my shape changed, and that was for me, that was really good. And the fact that I could, you know, just being with Pete, I learned that actually I could just eat a load more food.
Yeah. And what about supplements? Do you like fish oils or anything? What sort of supplements?
No, oh my God. I mean, I'm surprised I haven't got mercury poisoning in the amount of tins of mackerel I eat. No, I take vitamin D and I take iron. I take Spartone every other day.
Yeah.
Just the liquid, because if the tablets, my stomach doesn't like them. And that's the only. I mean, Pete is a walking. I don't rattle when he walks. He has so many supplements.
Like myself.
Yeah, you guys are all like that. It's just I take the piss out of them. There's always deliveries from Amazon, some sort of bottle or something. No, I'm pretty basic. I just take those, and I love my this is a plug, I suppose, Nutrien. I love the clear protein drink. I drink so much of that. I really love it. I find that the protein powder can make me feel a bit sick. I do have protein as well, but it makes me feel a bit sicky. So I have the clear protein. I drink lots of that, and that's it in terms of. That's it.
Yeah. And that your body holds up pretty well against that. You're I mean, for context, at 48, you're out running as much as you're doing. How does your body feel each time you go for a run?
It takes me a bit longer to warm up. It's really hard for me to compare this. So when I was training hard, I felt like I had ME. I was fucked. You know, I'd get out of bed and it was like I could barely move. I don't feel
Because
like
you
that
were
now.
undernourished. Because
I
you
was
were undernourished.
undernourished, massively undernourished. I was
Yeah.
dizzy the whole time. It's stupid. Now, because I'm nourished, I sleep better as well. My sleep is so much better. I don't feel so bad. Yeah, I don't feel so springy. I'll be honest, I'm not as springy as I was, but I can still go out and run, 20 miles on Sunday, and
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. What else do you need, right? And you're recovering better. You feel healthier. You're getting the work done that you need to get done.
Exactly. And for me, strength training will be non-negotiable going forward. It has been since 2018. I realized the benefits of that. Eating enough food always, and getting enough sleep. I mean, those are the supplements that you need: strength training and sleep and
Oh,
food.
sleep. I mean, I think my biggest fact, because I work shifts,
Oh
sleep
yeah,
is my biggest thing that I say to people now. Sleep is the steroid. Sleep is a steroid. It's the magic key. Get as much sleep as you can. Like, I nodded off in work the other day, in my chair, and somebody said, "Oh, you first?" I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm happy about that. I'll get as much. I'll steal it while I can now. Like, sleep is the magic steroid.
it is definitely. And yeah, if you can just get more quality sleep, then that will just help you. And for longevity, I mean, there's so much stuff about that.
Yeah,
But yeah, for me, yeah, the best thing I will other supplement I say is get silicone earplugs. They help you sleep really well, and a face mask,
yeah.
eye mask.
Okay. So, Holly, before I let you go, a couple of tips that you would give people who are starting out running. Someone who's 20 who's starting, and somebody who's 35 and starting. What would you give them? Would the tips be the same, or?
They'd be exactly the same. Make sure that you don't need to spend a lot of money. Get a decent pair of trainers, okay, that are comfortable. That's the main thing. People still think they need to be a certain way, but it's comfortable. Get a decent pair of trainers, and if you've been running for a bit as well, start incorporating some speed work if you've never done that before. Just strides are really good, like 10 by work up to 10, from 4 to 10 by 10 to 20 seconds of strides. So that's not flat out, that's accelerations on the flat or a very slight incline, like a hill, not crazy hill. That will just increase your overall speed for all your other runs after
What about some
time.
fartlek stuff? Do you ever do any fartlek
Yeah,
stuff?
you can do. You can add that in as well. But starting by doing strides 2 or 3 times a week would really help. It makes such a big difference. And yeah, I mean, it would be the same for everyone. But and just enjoy it. Remember why you're doing it. If you're finding time, you're going out and you're hating it and you're wondering what you're doing, then you need to rethink about. And everyone says it's your why, but why are you doing? Why are you doing it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no matter what you're doing in your life, if you're a professional athlete or if you're just a hobbyist, at some point the sun's going to explode and we're all going to be gone, or
Yeah,
the simulation's going to come to an end and it's all going to be turned off. At some point, one of those things is going to happen, and none of it's going to make any difference. If you're dragging yourself through something that you're not enjoying, is not putting a smile on your face, you are doing the wrong thing.
yeah, exactly. If you're dreading it, or if you're coming back and it hasn't made you feel happy or fulfilled, then you're probably, you're either doing it not fueled enough, or you're doing it for too long, or you're running it too fast, or whatever. Just take it back to basics. And also the other thing is that I find, for me, I love running in new places as well. That makes me feel more uplifted. I like, sometimes, like you, like if I'm running in the woods, I don't like to have anything in my ears, but a lot of the time I love to listen to podcasts. I like consume podcasts the whole time, like educational podcasts and things like that. Listen to audiobooks, whatever makes you happy. Or like run with friends as well. That's another thing as well.
Yeah.
That's a really good accountability thing, actually. If you're really struggling with that, meet a friend and go for one, because it's 10k with a friend or 5 miles with a friend, and it goes much quicker.
Yeah, I think people neglect the social aspect of running, right? Like, I mean, I run a lot on my own because I'm
Yeah,
quite
I'm a solo
sporadic
runner.
with my running. Sometimes I will run simply because I can't be bothered to go to the gym after a 12-hour shift. I think I'm going to go home, put my trainers on, and like sometimes I like to run just because it's raining. I'm like, right, I'm just going to run. It looks like a nice half rainy day today. I'm going to go out and just going to run. And so I'm sporadic. But I think, yeah, the social side of running, like these park runs and stuff, can be really good, I guess.
Yeah, they're really good. And I'd also say that every run is a run. Like, some people think that you have to go out and run for half an hour or an hour. You don't. You can go and run for 10 minutes. You can go and run for a mile. You can go and run for 2 miles. It's a run. And I guarantee you'll feel better after it. So just get out there and do it.
For sure. Holly, listen, thank you so much. I want a commitment from you that you're going to come back on after you do this amazing.
I'd love to come on. Yeah, I'd love to come back and tell you about Hangover.
Awesome. The giraffe, how you got the giraffe in the back of the van, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and explain why I've got a massive tattoo on my forehead that I can't remove.
Also, where do people follow you? How do they keep up with what you're doing? That sort of stuff. Your podcast, plug it all away before we go.
Okay, so my Instagram is Rush by Nature, my handle. So Rush by Nature, all one word. And it's the same for my website. So my website's rushbynature.com, and that has all our e-guides on how to lift and run. We've got training plans that you can use. And also I do mentoring, so have a look there. And then the podcast that I am a co-host on is Running Won't Save You. And that's on Spotify, Apple. Yeah, we're podcasting weekly.
Awesome. All that'll be tagged anyway when I put this out. But yeah, thank you so much. Stay where you are. I'll say goodbye to you personally, but thank you very much.
Thank you.